Let's say your Oxonian friend, Khairy were to come to you and say, hey, you know, situation out there is a bit challenging. I'm not sure which party that wants to take me or I should join. And I've made that offer for him to join the DAP. He comes to you and say, as a fellow Oxonian and somebody who is experienced in politics and understands DAP well, should I join the DAP? How would you respond to him?
This is called putting me in a spot.
Yeah, I mean it's a legit question. I'm not sure whether he would have asked you this before, but let's assume that he would listen to this.
He needs to figure out himself. He knows what it is. He has seen everything. He has to decide whether it is a party that will best deliver his promise.
Hi, welcome to part 3 of this limited podcast series with myself, Kian Ming, and also with Tony Phua. And we're here to discuss the policy landscape with regards to the Madani government under the leadership of Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Maybe I can start off with a more general question with regards to your impressions in terms of the policy principles under this Madani government, given the fact that there's no manifesto of this unity government to sort of like guide the government. Where to start, is it?
Yeah, I don't know where to start and I don't know how to comment. To be honest, for the current unity government, I do not have high expectations. I think we need to set expectations at the right level. We cannot have the typical high expectations we would have if it is a Harapan government. We need to moderate the expectations, knowing that this is a government to some extent of convenience. Okay, it is a coalition government between two formerly bitter enemies. There are going to be policy differences. There are going to be differences in approach. So for me, my expectations is as long as certain general principles are adhered to, okay, I am not going to fuss over some of the finer details or finer prints. The example of principles adhered to be, for example, open tenders. Okay, I'm not going to freak out over whether this policy is this approach is good or that approach is better, as long as either approach that was taken is underlined by certain basic principles. Open tender is underlined by the fact that it's not a direct negotiation with my best friend, Mr. Crony A, and if those simple principles are adhered to, even if the outcome of the policies isn't optimal, we are not too far away.
So, for example, if let's say a second 5G network were to be given out, it should be by open tender.
The second 5G network, if it is given out, is a stupid policy decision in my view. Okay. But if it is by open tender, then I say, okay lah, saving grace lah.
Okay, reluctantly accept it lah. Yeah. Okay, so that remains to be seen whether that second network would be awarded or not. But we'll keep updated. How about other policies that I think maybe has received, I think, somewhat positive reviews from the general public as well as people who are in the corporate as well as public policy monitoring space. I'm referring to specifically the New Industrial Master Plan 2030 and also the National Energy Transition Roadmap. I'm not sure to what extent you've kept up with the details. I'm of course a bit biased because I was part of the review committee looking at the NIMP 2030. What are your impressions with regards to these policies?
I don't have a problem with the documents.
Okay.
Implementation. I didn't even go into the details on trying to find, okay, this bit I agree, this bit I don't agree, let's fine tune this. It is going to boil down on implementation. So it is, if you ask me, the document compared to say the GDP and EDP documents, they are probably of equal standards. They are good documents. Okay, we always have differences in the finer prints, but they are good documents. Ultimately, it depends on whether the documents are put to use and followed and executed in the right fashion. So that to me is probably more important than the documents itself.
Budget 2024. Some people have said that it's a little bit of a conservative document. No announcement of rationalization of the petrol subsidies, only for diesel subsidies, and maybe nothing that grabs the attention, but maybe just trying to keep the ship steady. Would you agree with that point? With that kind
I agree, and I would have not expected anymore.
Okay, because
Of exactly what I mentioned just now. It is a government in transition from a Malaysian historical political landscape perspective. It is not a government that is capable of undertaking major policy changes or reforms. It is not a government that is capable of utilizing political capital or sacrificing political capital for better good, simply because there's very little political capital to be sacrificed.
Even though the government has a 2/3 majority.
On paper.
Okay.
I think we all know that the word is 2/3 majority, but it is on paper. Any party pulling out will create massive shifts in the governing structure. So from that perspective, it is only expected to be somewhat conservative. The government cannot afford to put in policies that are going to be very unpopular, even if it is perhaps
better for the country in the long
better
run.
for the country in the longer term. So those things, like it or not, may have to wait a little while.
Implementation is key, you mentioned. And I think for, let's say, the NIMP, the Ministry of International Investment, Trade and Industry has already announced that they will set up a sort of like a monitoring unit.
But we always set up monitoring units.
So I was going to ask you, do you think a more robust monitoring unit like what Pemandu did is necessary for the government, or are there better models of implementation and monitoring?
I think it's more like, who do you put in as the people who monitor? The competence of the people who monitor is important, and the powers given to the people who monitor is also important. So you can have, number one, a poor monitoring unit that basically, I've seen a lot of monitoring units that basically regurgitates what is presented to them. So you're not really monitoring, you're just listening to what is presented and then regurgitating them without verification or validation. That's number one. And if you do appoint very good, very strong, competent people for the monitoring unit, but they are not given any teeth,
Not empowered.
then the monitoring unit is as good as a waste of time.
Okay, so with that, let's take a short break, and then we'll come back on some of the more specific policy details that I want to hear, that we can discuss together. Okay, let's talk about some more detailed policy issues, starting with high-speed rail and MRT3.
High-speed rail, my favorite.
Government has asked request for information on high-speed rail, but no announcements in terms of MRT3. What is your take on that?
For high-speed rail, my favorite rhetorical question is, don't you think high-speed rail is great? Of course it's great. Be able to travel fast, But will it be great if you have to pay 400 ringgit one way for the high-speed rail? Or maybe I'll just fly, because it costs only 200 ringgit from Firefly, airport to airport. Not a problem. Very often the problem with public policies on projects like high-speed rail in Malaysia is debated in a vacuum. There's no context of how much it costs. There's no context of operational
Structures.
structures. It's just, wow, high-speed rail, I want to be like China, Japan.
Or maybe
so
even
good.
Indonesia, Jakarta, Bandung.
Yeah. So there's no context of the fact that it costs 60 billion or 80 billion or 100 billion, and how much do we have to pay to service the debt. The fact that the entire project will be funded by that. There's no context at all. There's no thinking of how many people do we need to use the train
to make it sustainable.
viable, to make it sustainable? Do we have the population density in both countries to make it make sense? In Klang Valley, there are 7 million people, plus minus. Okay, in Singapore, there's 7 million people, plus minus. Between Tokyo and Osaka, each city has like 15, 20 million people. It makes sense. Between Beijing and Shanghai, each city has like 30 million people. Yeah. It makes absolute sense. But we have 7 and 7.
And we have good flight connectivity.
And we have excellent flight connectivity.
And we have a train ETS.
There are two aspects I'll highlight. Number one, this is the best response given to me by the former CEO of Khazanah when looking at the HSR. Let's take a debt of 60 billion. That's very conservative. It's going to cost more, 80, 120 billion. Let's take 60 billion ringgit. Okay, that's the cost of building the HSR. Interest rate 5%. How much are you paying in interest every year? 3 billion ringgit. For 3 billion ringgit interest, don't talk about paying back the capital, just the 3 billion ringgit interest, how much are the cost, ticket prices? Okay, you pay ticket to travel Singapore, KL every week. All the seats full. Okay, every flight that is available today, all the seats full to and fro Singapore. How much does it cost? Less than 3 billion ringgit. So it is actually cheaper to give everyone free tickets
than
to actually build a 60 billion high-speed rail, incurring an interest cost of 3 billion a year. But it's exactly what we need in policy making. You have to make
the numbers
make sense. And at the moment, it does not make sense.